Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, Kilda, power. I love the power. I love the power.
Hi and welcome to the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast. This is a weekly show dedicated to all things Port Adelaide Footy Club. I'm your host, Macca 19, and back on the podcast this week after a week off is Fishing Rick 04. How you going, mate?
Very good, King Macca. What about yourself?
Always good, buddy. Good to have you back.
Lovely. Good to see the review was on the Port Adelaide website again. I loved looking at it.
It was. It's doing very well, which is good.
Good work.
And also returning to the podcast for the first time this year, as always, one of our forum favourites, we're talking with RussellEbertHandball.
Good evening, guys. Good evening, all listening. And isn't it great to have a long weekend off for a horse race?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well, we might as well get straight into it and talk about our love and hate for this week, which is something that we loved, something that we hated in and around the Port Adelaide Footy Club this week. REH, I might start with you, mate. What was your love and hate?
Well, I've probably got two loves. The one is the crowd reaction to Butcher every time he went near the ball or grabbed the mark or almost grabbed the mark when he went for the ball yesterday. I'm just thinking 45,000 people at the New Adelaide Oval with the amphitheatre. I'm looking forward to that. Him having a day out, another 4 or 6 or 8 goals one day, and just a full house or close enough to a full house. The other love was the season launch. What a great night! What a great night! And I just I got to say thanks to Big Footy and all the people who contributed so that we can do a sponsorship and. Big Footy's starting to get a bit of recognition. People know who it is. Turning up to those events, I'm starting to get to know some people and just going up to talk to people. I never went to a club function or a club, even a post-game thing before 2002. And since I've been back in Adelaide in 2010, it really feels like my club. It just was a fantastic night. I'll talk about it bit later on, and in particular the two guys that we've sponsored, Johnny Butcher remembers us, and Matthew Broadbent and his 2 housemates are great guys to talk to. They just sort of both remember who the hell Big Footy is and who I am, and always keen to talk. And I guess my hate is, I know I'm a bit picky, but Jasper Pittard's last quarter when he just seemed to want to give St Kilda the ball all the time. I know we're trying things, but maybe we can try icing the clock or, not being so risky when we're in front with only a few minutes to go. It just drove me nuts that last quarter.
Fair call. We probably should have won by a bit more, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. And yeah, look, with the player sponsorships, I mean, I'm very, very proud of what we've been able to achieve at Big Footy for the Port Adelaide Footy Club. I think it's over about $23,000 we've raised in the last 4 years, going back to the Foundation Leader sponsorship that we did. And then, of course, the Captain's Club and the player sponsorships we've done since then. I think that's bloody fantastic. $23,000 for a group of people that, buy their memberships and their season tickets and their merchandise every year, to be able to afford to do that on top of that, I think it's a great thing.
And in particular, the guys who live interstate or even the odd one overseas who still say they want to do something, and they let us buggers who end up going to the events. We get that extra little satisfaction that they're never going to be out. Well, they're rarely going to get the chance to get. So you also got to say thanks for them for saying, okay, I might not be able to go, but I'm still want to contribute. Yep,
absolutely. Fishing Rick, how about your love and hate, mate? What did you love and hate this week?
Well, it's hard to top that one. I think they're very good points there, guys, and it just shows what passionate supporters we do have. But going on from REH's cheering, I think it was great to see Butcher stand up, and he's going in the right direction. I noticed in your review, Macca, you said 3 goals won from 4 scoring shots, and I think that will give us supporters a bit of optimism that he's going in the right direction, even if he's wearing some controversial shoes, I see. and my hate for the week, and I'm sure we'll talk about Butcher in a bit more detail in the review anyway. And my hate, I'm picking at straws here, I guess. I was going to say Sammy Calhoun, coming off in the reserve. Oh, sorry, being in the reserves and not starting in the seniors. I really was hoping he'd get a bit more exposure this year because I think he's got the goods. But now that I've been thinking about it a little bit more, I'd probably want to dwell on, and this will come up in the review as well. But our slow starts again at the beginning of the quarter, and especially the first quarter, and we've already brought it up this year as well. We just can't afford to keep doing that, and we need to really start doing something there.
Yep, fair enough. Absolutely agree with both of them. My love for this week was Mason Shaw, who played in the reserves game against South Adelaide. It's the first time I've seen him play where he's really sort of commanded the ball. He took a couple of really big grabs, really big contested grabs, kicked a few goals. You know, he really did look like a key forward for the future. And it's the first time I've really seen him attack the ball and, you know, look like a real good key forward. So great to see him do that. You stole my thunder there. I was going to say slow starts, but I'm going to say thrashed in the clearances. We got absolutely pantsed. I think it was something like 29-50 in the clearances, which is abominable, really. It's not good enough. Every time it seemed that Renouf was in the ruck, we really, really struggled. Every time Lobie was in there, we sort of broke even 50-50. And it sort of coincides with the slow starts where we just get absolutely thrashed in the clearances to start the first quarter, and we're behind the 8 ball already, and it's happened probably 3 times this year already. So that's something we need to look out for, I think. What we might talk about now is the big news of the last sort of 7 days, which is the re-signings. 4 players have committed to the club for the future. Obviously, the big one was Ollie Wines. He's committed to the end of 2016, as well as Cameron O'Shea as well. And Justin Westhoff and Jasper Pittard have committed to the end of 2017. Nick, how do you feel about them?
Oh, it's great to lock in all those guys, but in particular get Ollie out the way before the season starts. All the speculation and the crap you're going to hear through the media. Will we go back home? You know, we started with Damien Barrett on Thursday night, saying Carlton we're going to get him. So it's great to get all that crap out the way at the start of the season. I was always confident he'd sign again. He doesn't seem like the bloke that would just leave after 2 years like Mr. Jacobs. Great to stitch up Westy. You know, he wasn't going to go anywhere, but still it's great to stitch him up. And you know, I can't quite use the word awe, but I've become inspired by Cam O'Shea, somebody who made me tear my hair out in 2012. I just have so much confidence when he goes for the ball. I don't know what it is, but you see this gap between him and the opposition player and the ball's being kicked in the air. I just know he's going to get there. And I know he's not going to fumble like he used to fumble. So I personally would have locked him in for another year or two if I don't know whether the club didn't want to do it or he didn't want to do it. But I would have liked to see him sign a 3 or 4 year deal. And I know Jasper frustrates the hell out of me sometimes, but it's good to lock him up because he's got plenty of positive. He just has to eliminate. If he can eliminate those clanger kicks, you know, he becomes a powerful player for us.
Yeah. As you said, Westhoff probably wasn't going to go anywhere else, but the other 3, they're all young. They've all got a lot of raw talent, you know, and they're going to lead the way for the future, you feel?
Oh, look, I think even though everyone's saying that Westhoff probably wasn't going anywhere, you know, you got to remember it could have been destabilising for us having to go throughout the season with prolonged talks about the he's a restricted free agent, so. You know, that sort of seals that up for us, which I think is fantastic. And obviously everyone's going to be talking about Ollie Wines signing on, and it just shows what a disgrace Damien Barrett and these Port Rumans are every year consistently. You know, the people try to be destabilising to us as a club, and this really reduces that. And yeah, Cam O'Shea and Jasper, 2 young guys that are committed, and I think well done to Jasper. 3 years, you know, for a Victorian lad, shows where his heart is, and I hope our supporters get around him and really appreciate the football that he's going to step up and do this year, because we all know he's an absolute gun.
We got the power to win, power to roll, come on, Port Adelaide aggression, we are the power from Port.
Alright, and of course the main event yesterday, we'll talk about it now, was the Port Adelaide versus St Kilda trial game at Alberton Oval. There would have been, I think it only said something like approximately 6,000 people, but I'm sure there was more than that there. To me, it looked at over 8,000 people. Port Adelaide won 18 goals, 17, 115. St Kilda 16 goals, 10, 106. Goal kickers were Ebo and Butcher kicked 3 each. Westhoff, Cassisi, Boak and Hartlett kicked 2, whilst White, Young, Brody and Chad Wingard kicked 1. REH, do you want to give us a bit of a quick overview of the game?
Slow start, looked disorganised, then got into it. I think the three-quarter time stats that I wrote down, I thought I brought them with me, but 47 hit-outs to 26, clearances 21 to 42. And that goes with what you were saying, is that Renouf got his hand on the ball a lot. Looks like for three quarters they tried to see what Lobie was going to be like up forward, and it showed. I don't think it'll work. I don't think he's a forward. Impey to me was bloody impressive. He's ready to go. I don't know whether he will play round one because we've got a lot of guys to potentially come back in. Carlisle, Trengove, Schultz and Gray might mean that he can't get a game, but he's good enough to get a game in round one. I was super impressed with Tom Clorey. For a guy who hasn't played an AFL game to be on one of the best centre-half forwards of the last decade, 12 years. Okay, it's a practice match and maybe Rewalt wasn't as fired up for the game, but he wasn't perfect, Tom, and he didn't pants Rewalt or anything like that, but just for a guy so young to be so composed is a bloody good sign, considering Carlisle and Trengove weren't playing. Jack Homps, a little shaky. I thought for 2.5 quarters between late in the first and probably halfway to the last quarter, we were the best side by a long streak, but the tail ends of the game, and what you said before is that we can't afford. You imagine doing that to the good sides like Fremantle or Hawthorn, who've got great kicking skills. If we stuff around, for the first quarter, we can't keep on relying on our great running ability to get us back into the game.
No, fair call. Absolutely agree. We did start very, very slow. I think it was 7 goals to 3 at quarter time. We just couldn't get our hands on the ball, really. I mean, they just went bang straight from the get-go. Similar to the Essendon game, it took us about 20 minutes to settle down, get our structures right, and from then on we did take control of the game. It took us a while to hit the front. We only hit the front sort of late in the third quarter. But once we were there, we ran away with it a little bit until St Kilda got a couple of late goals to cut the margin back to 9 points. The thing I liked was, I definitely agree with Tom Cleary. I thought he had a pretty good game on Nick Riewoldt. I mean, I think he's only had 3 goals kicked on him the whole pre-season so far. He only had 1 goal kicked on him yesterday. Impey, I also agree, he looks ready to go in round 1. He definitely can play in round 1. Whether he'll squeeze into the side, I'm not too sure. Personally, I would love to see him play in round 1. I think he's ready to go. Rick, what did you think, mate?
Well, I was just wondering, I was a bit critical of Renouf last game as well, and you guys are passing comment that really we got smashed in the contest when he was in the ruck, and Lobie was probably down on output as well last game, and he didn't predominantly play ruck this week. Where are we going to be heading in our ruck stocks then come round 1 and 2 if Renouf isn't up to it and Lobie isn't being front and centre in the ruck for 75-80% of the game?
To me, it looked like they were trying to rest Lobie to try and not expose him to too much ruck work this week with round 1 next week.
I agree with that. With that. He was rested.
Otherwise, you've got... Renouf's only on the rookie list, so there's no guarantee that he's going to be upgraded to get a game anyway. So, to me, it just looked like a bit of a strategy to sort of give him a little bit of a rest before round 1, after he's done a fair bit of ruck work the last 2 weeks, I think. Lobie's form, it's been sort of hit and miss. I think he's definitely working really, really well with the midfielders. But his around-the-ground form, which was so good late last year, has disappeared a little bit to start the season.
I think we're going to go Butcher, Schultz, Westhoff, Trengove comes in, you've got two potential backup ruckmen to give Lobie a bit of a rest.
Yep.
I can't see Renouf playing with Trengove and Butcher being in the side. But it's good to... He got his hands on the ball. A couple of times I saw players, sort of pointing to him and him pointing back to the the ruck rovers and rovers that, were to position. So obviously the communication was down a bit. But the fact that, because Hickey's a man mountain, the fact that he was getting his hand... Okay, Hickey's not the best ruckman, but he was getting on over the top of him. The fact he got so many clear taps, and yet St Kilda were just smart enough. Lenny Hayes and Jones and co were smart enough to read the play, read the ball, his taps.
It was definitely noticeable at the ground. I was standing with Ford Fairlane and past my primers, and we all noted that whenever Renouf was in the ruck, we were getting thrashed in the clearances. He just couldn't. He was getting his hands on the ball, but just couldn't find our player with the hit out. Whereas Lobie was actually finding our players, and we were getting a lot of very clean clearances when he was in the ruck. I guess something else I want to talk about is forward structure. How did you think it went this week, Nick, with Butcher and Westhoff up there?
I thought it went pretty well. The first quarter, Butch was a bit shaky in terms of where to run, but once he clunked one, and I think he got a little left foot kick. That might have been early in the second quarter. He was confident going for the ball. I had a chat to him at the season launch, and before I had a chance to ask him about his injuries, I'm really fit, I've got no injuries here, and he went through what was right with him. So I think he's in a confident, headspace at the moment, which is really good. And I don't know how you can give away a holding your opposition jumper when you're in front, but that play there, he worked his way to the front really well, and somehow he got a free kick against him. So it's all the good little signs, and he's kicking with his left foot when he's out on the left hand side. He's confident enough, and it's almost a little bit like Treaders. Sometimes his left foot kicks on the run are better than his set shots for goal. So as long as we can keep him on the field, we're going to stretch any defensive. Schultz, Westhoff and Butcher's there. And the beauty with Westhoff being a swing man, we can throw him down back, but Westhoff also is good at floating, and Schultz just does so much work. Butcher could be the missing link this year.
Yep, fair call. I think I do agree with that. I loved Butcher's game yesterday. For me, that was probably, outside of his second game of AFL against the Bulldogs when he kicked all those goals, that was probably the best game of AFL footy I've seen him play in terms of structure, running, leading, repeat leading, attack on the ball, attack on the man. He was doing everything that a key forward should, and it's something that we haven't seen pretty much all of last year whenever he played. But this year he was doing some really good leading, or this week, sorry, he was doing some very good leading. He was taking some marks. He took a couple of nice contested marks. And kicked 3 goals, 1 from 4 scoring attempts. He also dished off 2 others, 2 goals. You would take that every week from a key forward.
I should too. That's 60 goals. We can get 50 to 60 goals out of him, 60 out of Schultz, and 40 out of Westhoff. And then you got Wingard and Monfries who might kick 30, 40, and who knows with Robbie Gray. That gives us
potentially very mean forward line.
Yeah.
Rick, what about you, mate?
Yeah, well, I was just wondering from your notes, Macca, you actually you pointed out that Westhoff played almost like a floating midfielder, which should enable Butcher more leading space as well, really, to instead of playing behind as he predominantly did a fair portion of last year. And I would imagine you guys would also feel if Westhoff is pushing up the ground in that floating midfield role, that it should leave enough forward 50 definitely for Butcher and Schultz to work together.
Oh, definitely. I think I think we need Butcher to come good. We need Butcher to become that sort of 40-goal forward, and that then allows us to play Westhoff without taking anything away from our forward line. I think when we were playing Westhoff further up the ground last year, you could definitely tell that we were sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit. Whereas this week, Westhoff was able to play as almost a genuine midfielder, and he did such a good job as well. And he's such a impact player playing on a wing, that tall sort of midfielder. He can take grabs, he can get it forward. And not only that, he was bulking around players, he was running and taking a few bounces. He did it all yesterday. and we really do need Butcher in that role up forward to allow Westhoff to do that on a weekly basis.
And yeah, talking about run, there was good movement out of defence. I liked Impey. Impey, he's a cocky little bugger, which I like, and he takes guys on and he usually gets away with it. So he started some run. Chloe's run out of half back a few times. A couple of wayward kicks, which was a bit strange because most of his video stuff is that he's a damn good kick, but he attacked the ball hard and tried to provide some run. Polak, it was interesting. A few times he took the ball out of the back lines when he found himself down there, and he's definitely likes. I don't know whether it's natural or he's just been listening to Ken, but he's always looking to go through the middle with his kicks. Not necessarily his running, but his kicking. He likes bringing the ball back through the corridor.
Yep, definitely agree with that. He was Pollock was someone that I thought was a little bit quieter at the ground. I thought, well, he hasn't really had the amount of the bowl that he had in the previous couple of games. But coming on, I was pretty surprised to see that he had 22 touches as well, and he also had 100% disposal efficiency for the game. So, he's going to be such a key player this year. I thought our running out of defence was pretty good. It was more sort of corridor based than what I thought we were trying to do against Essendon, and a little bit. I guess it's hard to say what we were trying to do against the Crows because it was such a young team. But I felt that there was a concerted effort to go through the midfield, to go through the corridor this week.
Just about Polak, I actually watched him for about 10 minutes, and compared to the Essendon game, he was getting a lot of ball closer to almost like an inside midfield, and they were sort of, I think he racked up a lot more handballs this week than last week. I haven't seen the stats, but just on what I saw and what I can remember of the vision from the Essendon game, was that he got a lot more handballs in close and tight.
Yep, he had 22 touches and he had 10 contested possessions, which was equal first on the ground, I think. So he was doing a lot of grunt work yesterday. Yeah.
Which is good, which means that he'll go in there as
absolutely.
Well as be the outside guy.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So it was interesting with our decision making. It sort of varied. When we were bad, we looked really bad, and when we were good, we made some great decisions and took. I guess it's that high risk football. When it comes off, it looks fantastic, and when the kicking's not up to scratch, we seem to want to cross over the ball from one side of the ground to the other, which is fine. But I don't know whether they didn't read the wind properly. It was too long a kick. I thought sometimes when we, especially in the first half when I was sitting in the Quinn stand, I can recall twice that I thought, why are you going that far across the ground? It's almost like it's ineffective. And once resulted in a goal being cut off. So I don't know whether that's a team rule or it's just them trying things. But when you're trying to pass the ball 60 metres across the ground, to me that's not smart footy.
No. I guess they were trying to switch it, as they did against Essendon. They were trying to switch and find some space on the other side of the ground. I thought our decision making was just okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. As you said, when it came off, it was fantastic. I think there was probably 2 goals where we ran at the length of the ground and got a goal out of it, and it looked absolutely fantastic. The crowd went nuts. And there were other times where we just made poor decisions and turned it over. I think we need to sort of clean up our kicking a bit. I think we might be a little bit behind in our kicking sort of skills this year. And given that sort of let us down a fair bit last year, I was hoping that would be pretty spot on.
One thing I forgot to mention earlier was that it seemed like St Kilda read our handballs pretty well and either stuck a hand out or intercepted our handballs all 4 quarters, even when we were playing well. We seemed to regularly, I don't know whether it's guys like Lenny Hayes who were just experienced in that and Jones in there, but as I said, just sometimes it was just putting a hand to block the ball and it went to ground rather than a complete steal.
Yeah, it was the same criticism that I had against Essendon, where we were sort of getting our hands on the ball first at the clearance, but then we were turning it over from the first or second disposal after getting the ball. And it was the same again this week. I'm not sure we'll be able to get away with it against Carlton in a real game, but I guess we'll see what happens. Rick, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, well, did the I guess with those intercepts, I guess it blows this question out of the water, you think it picked up with Essendon as well. But maybe Alan Richardson knew our structures a little bit, and maybe they were able to predict that as well through his advice, maybe off the Renouf in the ruck, and he wasn't smart enough to maybe change it up and counter that. And the two boys, I guess, you didn't talk about with the running out of defence were Pittard and O'Shea. How did those guys go? Because we're looking for Pittard to get some consistency in his game now, and there seem to be some differing opinions on the website, with you thinking Pittard was okay and others being very critical of his disposal this week.
Oh, look, you know me, I'm I'm normally pretty quick to criticise Jasper, but I thought he was pretty good. He did make 2 or 3 bad decisions, but the rest of his game I thought was more than solid. You know, he did provide quite a bit of run. The rest of the time I thought his kicking was pretty good. O'Shea was pretty well exactly the same as Jasper in that he made sort of 2 or 3 really bad errors, but the rest of his game was pretty well fine. The thing I liked about Jasper's game again was, you know, he was quite prepared to back into packs, you know, to put his body on the line to cop a hit. And he showed a lot of courage, which was great. What did you think about our midfield? I thought our midfield worked pretty well outside of the clearance work. I thought Boak was best on ground. I thought Hartlett had a big game. Ebert was fantastic. Monfries played a full game pretty much as a midfielder, and I thought he was close to best on ground for most of the game. I thought our midfield turned out pretty well.
I thought Monfries was better than Boak, personally.
Yep.
Hartlett was interesting. They obviously were giving him a rest at half forward because he'd have like 5 minutes on, then they go up to half forward. And I don't know whether that's trying to protect his shoulder or not, but he didn't spend as much time as what I thought. So it'll be interesting to see what they do against Carlton, whether they'll use him. But there was one, you know, everybody says that Hayman's got a long kick, and he did kick a 60-metre goal. I'm trying to think I think maybe it was Johnny Butcher who gave him the handball. But there was this great bullet-like pass right up the wing. It must have been 50-metre pass to Butcher. And I thought, yeah, that's what I want to see from Hammer more, is that use that kick for those laser-like long passes rather than just blazing, which sometimes he does coming out of defence a bit.
Yep, definitely.
It's almost like an old stab pass. It was that hard that he... And okay, I know sometimes the forwards don't want it quite that hard, but it was a great kick to see.
It was very Buckley-like, I thought.
Yeah, that's a good call. It was hit hard, like Buckley does those kicks.
Yep.
Or did those kicks, I should say. We're in past tense now.
I guess there's 2 players that I want to talk about in a bit more detail, as they're either just in or just out, and that's Jarman Impey and Dom Cassisi. How did you see both of their games, and do you think they'll play in round 1?
As I said, if Carlisle, Trengove, Schultz and Gray all come back, I can't see Impey making it unless they decide he's going to be the sub. And
Yep.
personally, based on what I've seen, I like Aaron Young, but I personally would have Impey ahead of Young because he's got a lot more alternatives. Like he can play back or forward compared to Young. He's got more pace than Young. He can be that burst sort of player. If he comes on for just less or just more than a quarter, I reckon he potentially could have more impact than Young. So if he makes it next week, I reckon that's where he'll be. He'll be the sub.
Yep.
Sorry, who was the other one? Dom.
Dom. Yep.
Oh yeah, no, I played Dom. You always need somebody doing a shutdown role, and he played in patches. You could see that he still's got it. Okay, he's a little slow, but he just reads the ball well. You just have him in there to do a job.
Yep. I think.
And because I think Kane only played half the game, and that's why probably Dom did more of the stopping role than Kane.
Yeah, I thought Dom pretty well played himself into a round 1 spot this pre-season. I thought he was probably on the fringe, most likely to start just out of the team going through the pre-season. But this year, with what we've seen through the trial games to date, I think he's locked himself in to early season form. And as I've said in previous weeks, it's up to someone else to knock him out now.
That's a fair call.
He's played some great footy so far this year, and good on him too. It's great to see. Impey's a strange one. I'd love to see him play. As I said earlier, I would make a spot for him in the team because I think he's got a bit of a point of difference between him and a couple of other players. I thought he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant on the weekend. Just his lateral movement, his fast thinking. He can get himself out of trouble. He's super quick. He's got a big leap. And his disposal, which I thought was a little bit iffy at times earlier in the pre-season, I thought was absolutely bang on yesterday. He takes risks and they do pay off. I think we need to make a spot for him in the team.
Well, as I said, maybe he starts off as the sub. I definitely think he's gone ahead of Colquhoun, and personally I think he's a better value than Young.
Yep.
In terms of the young players. All the rest of the guys virtually picked themselves. They're obviously going to play wide. And Pollock, they didn't draft them not to play. So as long as they're healthy, and maybe Jarman has to wait a few weeks. But I was impressed with what I saw. I was impressed enough, should I say, with what I saw in both games on TV. But in live, he's really impressive.
Yep.
Cheer the black and the white, honour the Magpies day and by night, live that loyal band.
Well, we might leave it there for that game. Obviously, there's a lot to look forward to next week with round 1 coming up against Carlton. Of course, yesterday it was a double header, 9:30 a.m. It was a bit of an early start. It was Port Adelaide versus South Adelaide in the SANFL. Our side was based pretty much 50-50 between sort of AFL listed players and the SANFL only backups. Port broke out to an early lead. They led 4-1 at quarter time. They were able to hold the lead for pretty much the whole game. South threatened to take over throughout the third quarter, but Port took back control in the last quarter. They won 9 goals 10-64 to 7 goals 7-49, so a 15-point victory. Mason Shaw kicked 3 goals in a very, very good polished performance there. Hitchy kicked 2, Colquhoun, Sam Gray, Lewis Sharrod and Anthony Beamans kicked single goals for the Maggies.
How did the sort of Maggies players blend in with the Power guys? Did they know each other's game, I guess?
Yeah, you could tell that the Maggies players, or a lot of the younger guys, sort of like Robbie Young and Hawkins, those sort of guys, I think they struggled a little bit. They've got a lot of the Maggies players that we've recruited to be these backup players. They're all very young, very thin, very skinny, but super, super quick. So it's just a matter of them building into their bodies and getting used to the game style, I think. It was, the best players was pretty well mixed between 50-50 AFL and SANFL players. Sammy Colquhoun was best on ground in my opinion. I thought he had a great game. He was a bit sloppy to start with, but he worked into it really, really well, especially through the second half. Tommy Logan was brilliant, playing as pretty much a pure midfielder. He had a great game. Sammy Gray, he did what he always did. He would have got 25-30 touches. Out of the Magpies only players, I thought Beamans was probably the best. He's a really impressive player. He's really well built. He's small, quick, solid. He attacks it at 100%. He'll win a lot of Maggies fans over. And I thought Sawford and Harron were also high on our best players as well. Sawford's more of a very similar to Beamans and sort of Kulikowski from last year in that he, well built, can run, can carry the ball, did very well. Harron was fantastic in the ruck in the first half. I thought he was best on ground through the first half. Then he moved to full back and did a pretty good job on Brett Eddy there as well. So he's a player to look forward to for the future as well.
How did you briefly mentioned Mason Shaw? How did Shaw and I guess this is a critical year for Benny Newton. How did you see their games?
Shaw was great. Shaw was fantastic. I think we've got a lot to look forward to with him. He'll continue to improve without a doubt. I thought Harvey really struggled. I'm not sure he's ready for SANFL footy on that showing. He probably only had 2 or 3 kicks. He sort of took over in the ruck for a little bit, but he just couldn't get his hands on the ball. Benny Newton was great. I thought he had a little bit of a slow start, but his second half was fantastic. as I've said before, he reminds me a lot of Salopek and his ability to get the ball at a clearance, get hands free, and dish off a very effective handball. You know, he was pretty good.
Obviously, this is a critical year for him. If he cracks it regularly in the A grade, where do you see him? Where do you see his position?
At AFL level?
Yeah. I
think he'd be a bench midfielder. Coming in this year, he will start on the bench and then fill in for a Boca or an Ebert when they come off the ground for a rest.
Okay, so you reckon he'll be able to get lots of inside ball?
He's a clearance-winning midfielder. That's where he needs to play, in my opinion. That's where I think he does his best work.
No, I guess I knew he was a clearance. That was his strength, but whether you reckon he'd be good enough rather than sort of put him out on half back or something?
I think he'd do all right on a forward flank. I think he's pretty similar to Aaron Young in that I think their clearance work is their best trait, but they could also play out forward as well. I'm not sure I'd play him on a back flank, just because I don't think he's got the pace to go with a lot of players. But certainly on a forward flank, I think he'd be pretty well.
And did the Hoon rack up his usual 30 disposals at a SANFL level?
Oh, he did, yeah. Yeah, as I said, he was best on ground. I thought he would have got a good sort of 20 to 25 touches. Used it well. Was a little bit more penetrating with his kicks this week, I thought, than we normally see.
Yeah, and Tommy Logan, my man, that I reckon struggles when it's fast and dry, but come the rain, he'll be in the side. I guess he's going to be struggling to make the A grade unless there's a few injuries.
I think he'll do his normal job of playing sort of 10 to 12 games, and you know at SANFL level he's going to be. He's a high quality player at the state league level, and as I've said a few times over the years, I think if he played a full year at SANFL, he'd win a Magarey just like Thomas did.
Yeah, I was just wondering now with the whole one club, and we've got Gary Hocking coaching the Magpies. Did you notice a more comparable game style between our first and second side, maybe compared to the disjointed aspects there would have been in previous years, and because there wasn't really that one club merger, and I guess our Archie, there was a few comments that he did some good things, but probably didn't do the right things when he had the opportunity.
I think structurally, certainly up forward, I think we set up pretty well as the AFL team set up. Through the midfield, I thought we were pretty similar. We did try and switch the play quite a lot, as we have done at AFL level this pre-season. So look, I do think that there is a concerted effort to have a matching game style at SANFL level to what we are doing at AFL level, so that when players, and this is probably the key thing about the one club and having everyone under the one roof, is that we can do that so that when they do go up to the next level, they pretty much bang on know the structures and know what they've got to do already, which is fantastic. As for Archie, I thought he was a bit quiet. When he got the ball, he was really good. He just didn't get enough of it. I think he's got to work on his positioning. I'm not sure how we played him is going to do him any good. We sort of played him in the hole between sort of full forward and centre half forward between Shaw and Harvey, and I'm not sure it really allowed him to get into the play all that much, as sort of Shaw and Harvey were our main targets, and he was just sort of floating around hoping to get some crumbs. But when he did get the ball, he was pretty good. I think he's got to work on his goal kicking. That's a bit of a mess. But if he does that, he'll be a pretty good SANFL player and possibly get a game later on in this year, I think.
You reckon he'll get a game?
I think it's possible. Yeah, I mean we've kept him on the list for a reason, and my opinion is that if you're on the list, then you've got to hope to get a game, really. I think he'll probably rely on injuries. I mean, it's hard. He certainly won't be knocking out a Robbie Gray or a Monfries or Wingard or anyone like that. But look, I think if he does improve his game, if he gets up to that sort of 18 to 20 disposal level and can kick a goal or two a game, I think they'll look to see what he can do at AFL level, to see if he's deserving of another contract.
Look, I'm with you, Macca. I reckon end of the year, end of the season, he should be pushing at least to be getting senior selection.
Yeah, if he's not, then he's gone. I think it's pretty clear. So yeah, he'll be hoping to improve his output for sure.
You know him a little bit, Rick. Has he got any injuries?
Um,
He's trying to overcome?
Yeah, look, I know he did mention to me earlier in the pre-season that he had something. I won't say what it is. I'm not great mates with him or anything, but he did have a niggle, I think, from what he was saying, that was holding him back in the pre-season training, which I think's been a problem for him for the last couple of years now. So, and that's something he's trying to overcome. So that's why I think as well, I'd be hoping that come the second half of the year, he should be able to catch up on that loss of pre-season, because he didn't go to the Dubai camp with a couple other guys that sat out as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he was always, and we said it again last year as well, he was always recruited as an underager. So, you know, he probably needs that extra year or two in the system. And let's face it, we've probably had a time in our cycle where we can probably afford to carry a couple of those underages as well, and give them a bit more of an opportunity to develop in the AFL system.
Yep. Yeah.
Did Jake Need play yesterday?
He did. He was very disappointing, I would say.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, he just needs to work on his positioning. He just needs to find a way to get involved in the play. Similar to Archie, when he got the ball, something really good happened, but he only probably had 6 or 7 touches for the day. Didn't really notice him getting in the right spots to sort of run and carry with the ball. He was sort of more on a forward flank and just, I don't know, got a little bit lost out there, I thought.
Unlike last pre-season, there isn't any good, positive news coming out about Jake this year.
No, it seems, I don't know, maybe he's going to have a bit of a year of second-year blues, but I don't know, he just needs to find a way to get himself more involved in games.
Yeah, well, being a small forward, you can have limited opportunities, aren't you? So you've got to make the most of what you get and then try and make some extra ones.
All right, well, I think that's it for this evening. It was a very, very good day at Alberton, and two great games. It was great to see both teams win. Thanks for coming on, REH. It's great to have you back on again.
No problems, anytime.
And Rick, as always, mate, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no dramas, buddy. Thanks, Nick.
See you, Rick. See you, Macca.
And just to let you know, we'll be doing the preview podcast. It'll be out on Thursday night with the after selection, so we can talk about who's in, who's out, who's been a bit lucky and unlucky. And of course, a preview for the Carlton game. So you can look forward to that on Thursday night.
He's got to keep his feet. Corns just worried him out of it. Slips the handball to Treadray. Back turn, well done. Little give. This might be it. Corns, Treadray, Pierce.